The new motion sensor in Season 3 will actively track any enemy that enters its range and its line of sight, while also revealing a direct line between them and the sensor. To get the most value out of the sensor, make sure that you place it on the wall towards where you expect your enemy to be coming from. They will rarely look behind them as they are entering a room, especially if you are in front of them. Knowing where to place the motion sensor will win you so many more fights and give you a huge advantage over your enemies. And if you like that tip, stay tuned for one tip for every ability in the finals Season 3. Let's dive into it. If you're playing with another heavy on your team, try to coordinate your RPG fire between the both of you. If you push together, especially by both of you taking a jump pad at the same time, both of you can and should shoot an RPG against the same target, which if successful will one-shot any light or medium and even put a heavy down to very low health, which will turn them to a free kill. You can not only add a slide right before starting a defib animation, which lets you slide closer to teammates, but you can also add a slide at any point afterwards as well, as in when you're holding both of your paddles up, ready to rest a teammate. You can also immediately start a slide after the revive has started, which lets you reposition afterwards as well. Combine all the three to take less damage when going for risky defibs. Even though you can't carry 2 C4 at a time, they have kind of a short cooldown, and since you can have 2 active at the same time, it makes total sense to drop not only 1 but 2 C4s on the cash out. If the cash out is several floors up, you can even take this tip to the next level by placing 1 C4 below the cash out and then another C4 on the floor below. Activating the C4 will send the cash out and maybe even the enemy not just 1 floor but 2 floors down. The frag grenade doesn't really have much destructive ability, but it does do enough damage to break certain walls or ceilings, for example the wooden ceilings on Monaco or the hay ceilings on Kyoto. As for the zipline, I do have a great tip for this one, but odds are it will get patched out soon, so I'm going to give you another tip afterwards, just in case you catch it after it's been fixed. If you hold crouch before starting a zipline, as long as you keep holding crouch and don't aim down sights, you will still have crouch accuracy. This is the most noticeable on weapons like the revolver. Also, don't use this in rank because it can technically count as an exploit and might get you banned, so yeah, don't do that. As for the other non-bug tip, if you're defending the cash out and don't have any use for the zipline, just place it over the cash out. If you're lucky, due to its large hitbox, enemies might accidentally take the zipline instead of starting a steal, which might be enough to stop them from actually getting a steal off. The anti-gravity cube allows for so many fun interactions, but if I had to choose one, I'll definitely give a shout to the anti-grav winch combo. If you throw the anti-gravity cube onto the cash out and then winch it, it seems like the cash out almost has less weight. This will allow you to pull the cash out much closer towards you at longer ranges. You can let the cash out rise to the top of the anti-gravity field before winching for the best results. Other than destroying the prop it's attached to, the thermal bore will actually emit a fire to any nearby targets. This means that it will deal a little bit of fire damage to any enemy who might be on the other side of the wall as the bore goes through, which may be enough to finish off any low health enemy. The fire will also evaporate any gas clouds that it comes in contact with. Since you now can remotely deactivate the guardian turret by holding down the specialization key, this allows for some pretty valuable uses to conserve your cooldown. If the enemy starts shooting at or start breaking your turret, try to remotely destroy it first. If you manage to pull it off before it is destroyed, it will actually give you 80% of your cooldown refunded instead of losing the whole one, which lets you place it much sooner than if you let it get destroyed in the first place. There aren't many counters against the Winch claw, and by the way, I am working on a counter video that will be up soon TM, so if you don't want to miss that, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. But one of the few counters that do exist is with the jump pad. If a Winch claw pulls you through a jump pad, the pull from the claw will force you to take that jump pad instead of being yoinked all the way towards the heavy, which will both send you flying and look really funny. So if you know that a heavy is going for a winch on you, try placing a jump pad somewhere in between you. If you time it right, you might just survive, but you might go kind of far away. You and your teammates can also just preemptively play behind the jump pad, just like you would with an APS turret. After its change with how it interacts with water, the dome shield seems to be rolling a lot more than usual. If you use an overhand throw or an underhand throw while running down a hill, or as you're on a slope or a slanted roof, the dome will start rolling down that slope, and in many cases it can keep going until it hits a complete stop, way farther down than you initially planned to. As for the winch claw, it has near infinite amount of uses, so it is hard to decide on which one I'd want to mention, but one very underrated use for the winch claw is that you can pull the cash out towards you. You can pull it off a high ground to steal it, you can pull it off a moving platform into an exposed position to make it harder to steal it later on, and you can even pull it out of a building out into the open to make it more difficult for the enemy to steal it as well. You can also pull the cash out onto a jump pad to send it flying away, especially in low gravity. One of my favorites is using the winch claw to deny a steal. In most cases, the enemy will be setting up all kinds of defensive abilities on the point to defend themselves and pull off a cheeky steal. But you can counter this, just yoink the cash out away from them, and it will be in a new position, far away from all their cover and abilities. You can start a cloak directly after firing off a shot. This means that if you time the cloak perfectly when using something like the SH-1900, you can actually shoot at an enemy and cloak at the same time. In most cases, this will completely throw the enemy off, letting you hit that second shot that much more easier and secure the kill. If you throw a pyro grenade on an enemy barricade, anyone touching that barricade will start taking damage. This is a great way to easily zone your enemies away from their cover. With the sudden rise of the MGL-32, it is worth remembering that the mesh shield, like any shield, will reflect grenades. This includes the pelts shot out of the MGL-32. What this means is that if an enemy tries to bounce their MGL shot towards you, you'll actually bounce it back towards the floor or towards them instead. If the enemy heavy gets close and starts spamming their MGL, just hold your shield up and wait for them to reload before killing them. The barricade is another of the few abilities that actually can deal with the oppressive winch this season. If you know a winch is coming, make sure that you keep your barricade out and ready. If you pop the barricade once the winch starts zooming towards you, it will either deflect the winch as it will hit the barricade instead of yourself, or the winch grabs you, but the barricade will get in the way and stop it from pulling you in. Remember that you can use the grapple as an impromptu dash by starting the grapple and then cancelling it as it reels you in. You can then abuse that same momentum to bunny hop or slide to keep yourself moving forward. And okay, don't get on my ass about this tip. I know the video said new tips, but the grappling hook hasn't really changed, so okay, let's just move on. If you throw the gas grenade on a ceiling above you, it will actually damage any enemies on the floor above. Since you can now carry and place 2 breach charges at a time, this means that you can either create several holes at the same time, like with the C4 as I mentioned previously, or blow up something more rigid, like the cranes that you can see over most maps, by placing and detonating both of these breach charges at the same time. While I normally hate on thermal vision, with the buff that makes the smoke thicker, and going by the fact that the smoke grenade can be carried by 3 at a time, coupled with the fact that LH1 is a lot better this season, and combined with the fact that there are an insane amount of lights, especially ones using cloak this season, especially in ranked terminal attack, thermal vision, especially when combined with a sniper or LH1, is a great counter if you have to deal with several invisible lights at the same time. Keep it in your reserve so you are ready to counterpick. And of course, the stun gun is the last ability in the game that can actually counter the winch as well. Not only will any enemy hit by a stun gun be unable to use their specialization, including the winch, but if they are channeling the specialization, like starting to winch an enemy, stunning them will cancel it completely, which can save you or a teammate from getting pulled in and killed. Everyone knows you can throw a goo grenade against a wall to create a bridge and to cross a gap by now, but not many know that since goo grenades now are 6 blobs wide instead of 4, you can actually throw 2 goo grenades one after another to create a goo bridge 12 blocks long. I just wanted to quickly mention that I've started a Patreon featuring the tip of the day, because for months now I've actually been collecting tips and interactions into this massive database consisting of hundreds of valuable tips, interactions, and other types of valuable information. And while most, if not all of these, will eventually see the light of day in videos down the line, you know, tip videos like the one you're currently watching, they're still kind of just sitting there going unused. So for anyone who wants to support me and the channel, I will be posting one piece of high value information once a day that anyone who subscribes to the Golden Fishing Squad or above on Patreon can take part of, and that includes both old posts and any new ones. Check out the link in the description or hop on over to patreon.com/Ottr to subscribe today. If you don't feel like you want the early access to the tips, but you still want to support the channel, thank you first and foremost, but no worries, there's always a $5 Fishy Squad which gives you a role in my Discord and, like I said, helps to support the content and the channel. Thank you so much to the patrons so far. As for the evasive dash, keep in mind that the heavy spear introduced this season has a deceptively long range. In almost every case, dashing one time will put you out of harm's way from any melee weapons, but in the case of the spear, you will need to dash twice in a row to get out of range. When fully set up, you can set up the APS turret behind a heavy's barricade. This will let you use it as a stepping stool, which will give you a head glitch and optimal cover against the enemies while also eating any incoming projectiles which might be coming your way. If you place goo on top of a gateway, it will actually trap anyone that comes through it. The enemy will not only be unable to move while stuck in the goo, which can turn them into an easy kill, kill, but if they are unlucky, the goo will block them from being unable to interact with the gateway, which will stop them from taking the gateway back and escaping as well. The gas mine is one of the few placeable items, like mines, in the game that still let you pull off the insta-tech. If you throw a gas mine out in front of you while either looking straight ahead or almost straight up and then immediately hit a quick melee afterwards, this will instantly create a gas cloud on top of you. It's even faster than a gas grenade, and depending on the situation, the instant gas cloud can act as a visual obstruction and get you out of a pinch. The tracking dart deals a bit of damage. You can use this to your favor to remotely activate or detonate certain placeable items like mines, glitch traps, or motion sensors without putting yourself at risk. This is especially useful if you're using a close range weapon like the dagger or sword. If you start charging as you take a jump pad, you will actually deal damage to anyone that you bump into mid-air for the duration of the charge's animation. If you touch any props, walls, or ceilings, these will also be destroyed. As with any other mines, a great trick that I recently learned is to make your mines have a skin in a similar color as your spray. When you place your mine, spray on the ground underneath it, as this will mask the mine and make the enemy more likely to actually step on top of it if they don't pay attention. And honestly, even sometimes if they do. The pyro mine is another mine that benefits from the insta-tech. You can jump straight into gas, throw a pyro mine in front of you, and then melee it to activate it while it's still mid-air, which completely evaporates the gas you're currently huffing. And better yet, since it was activated mid-air, unlike the pyro grenade, the pyro mine won't leave a patch of flames on the ground and just evaporate the gas while leaving you mostly unscathed. If you throw a glitch grenade into an enemy's gateway, it will actually completely disable the gateway node from the other side. The vanishing bomb has a small but very noticeable teammate grace period where whatever they do won't interrupt invisibility for the next 0.8 seconds after they've been hit by it. This means that if you have a teammate going for a revive or even a steal and the enemy is about to pull up, throw your vanishing bomb on your teammate. If you time it right, your teammate will get almost a second before enemies can even see them, in addition to any possible confusion afterwards, which can give them even more time, which may be the deciding factor whether they get the steal or the rest off at all. Thanks to its long range and being able to scan through walls, the sonar grenade will generally be able to scan entire buildings on its own. To get the most out of it, make sure to throw the sonar in the middle of the building, or if it's a building with several floors, in the center of the building on the middle floor. Keep in mind that the sonar pulse isn't fully representative of its range either, it is actually slightly longer. So get comfortable with the range, and while most buildings can be covered with one sonar, many buildings may actually be too large, especially too wide for you to do so, in which case you might want to throw two sonars out on opposite sides of that very building. The data reshaper can actually be used reactively if any projectiles are coming your way, including frag grenades or RPGs. So if you see a big RPG heading your way, pull up the reshaper and look in the general direction of the projectile while spamming your primary key. If you do it right, it will turn into a mostly harmless flower pot. The flashbang can be used to quickly get a grasp of the situation of anyone within its range. Any enemies affected by a flashbang, meaning anyone in its range, no matter their distance or whether they look at it or not, and of course as long as they are within its line of sight, will have their health bar show up above their head. This can be enough to give you information on who to shoot first and where to focus your fire. The goo gun has a ton of different amazing ways that it can be used, and I really recommend checking out my video showing 25 different ways that you can abuse goo when you have the time. But one of my favorite uses of the goo gun this very season is abusing the bamboo forests around Kyoto. You can actually build small tree houses and platforms at the top of these bamboo columns. And by the way, I had no idea what these were called. I had to Google for like 10 minutes. I think they're called columns or columns. Culms? Either way, you get it. Just place goo at the very top and then just branch out from that. All you need is a movement ability to get on top, and then you have a great high ground to play from. This is especially useful if you're playing on the bamboo forest ending, as there normally isn't any cover otherwise. The glitch trap benefits from the same placing the trap where they don't look as the motion sensor because it behaves the same, but I also want to mention that both of these can both be used in conjunction with each other. If there is both at least one motion sensor active at the same time, knowing which one does what and which one to destroy in the heat of the moment may actually be enough to confuse the enemy, especially when the glitch trap is so oppressive in disabling their abilities. So yeah, if your heavy is running motion sensor, consider placing a glitch trap nearby. As with the anti-gravity field, the dematerializer slightly distorts anything viewed through it. Anything viewed through either of these abilities will actually be distorted towards the left. So if you want to shoot at a target or an enemy, this means that you actually need to aim to the right of them to actually have your shots land. Thankfully, once their health bar and outline are visible, you just need to track that instead of needing to guess. The healing beam actually has a very generous grace period after you or your teammate steps behind cover before the healing actually stops. And since you become a very high priority target once you start healing a teammate, this tip might just save your life. So instead of standing still in the open with direct line of sight to your teammates as they are fighting, try staying near cover. And if an enemies get within your line of sight and might even start shooting towards you, start ducking in and out of cover and try to stay behind cover for as long as possible without the small grace period of your heals ending. This will minimize the amount of damage that you can take while at the same time keeping your teammates healed up at the same time and lead to a much higher effective team health pool for the entire fight. The smoke grenade will not only extinguish any ongoing fires on the ground or extinguish any enemies or teammates who enter the smoke, but it will also actively shut down the active damage from a flamethrower. Since the flamethrower cannot set anything inside of a smoke on fire, a large part of its damage output is cut by its knees. If an enemy is running flamethrowers, really consider abusing smokes. But that is it for all the tips. If you guys have any better ones, let me know in the comments. And stay tuned for counters and more tips down the line. And in the meantime, you can always join the Patreon. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace out.